That's what I'm saying. The text is like an object. It's gonna change perspective based on where you're standing. I don't know.
Hello?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I missed you, baby sweet. It was a day.
It was a day.
Please tell me you're seeing this too.
From Seattle, we're Drinking the Movies. I'm Taylor Baker.
And I'm Michael Clausen.
That tastes like Halloween.
It sure does. That is a crisp Oktoberfest from Hellbent Brewing Company.
It's a Märzen.
Very good. Tasty. Fitting for
little nutty, little oaky.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Fitting for a Halloween episode of Drinking the Movies.
Ooh!
Spooky stuff, but with some comedy involved, no doubt.
Indeed. More camp than I had initially anticipated.
This is not the scariest of Halloween episodes.
Until the end.
Fair enough.
Until the end, sir.
Shall I tell the folks what we have lined up for today?
Sounds like a good idea.
All right. We're going to start with the 2009 film Jennifer's Body, directed by Karen Kusama, written by Diablo Cody. Then we're going to get on to One Cut of the Dead, a 2019 film, zombie horror comedy, directed by Shinichiro Ueda. And finally, what's our last title?
We are going to be getting to one of the greatest vampire films of all time. Nosferatu the Vampyre, I believe from the year 1979, from the director Werner Herzog, starring Bruno Ganz and Klaus Kinski. Without further ado, should we get to those first impressions?
Let's take a look.
Is any of this getting your creative juices flowing, you know?
Right, give it a rest. This could be the scene of a massacre.
Final issue starting to fucking get into your head now?
No.
It's my fucking job, man.
It's coming, all right? That's the whole point of me designing, the fucking road trip, all right? It's just like tingle, stimulate some inspiration. Final issue inspiration is the objective. Right
or, conversely, it doesn't have to be the last issue, but...
All right, we just watched the trailer for Random Acts of Violence. Thoughts?
Starring, directed by Jay Baruchel, correct? Maybe even written or adapted by? Really strong dialogue, great chemistry. Very brief little snippet we saw there. Less than a minute and a half, I want to say. But it's straight scene. Doesn't get into the horror slasher that it speaks of, but you can feel the undercurrent of those comic books creating that about to happen. So it's fun. It sounds fun. Feels fun. I want to watch it.
Yeah, I think I had mostly positive vibes from it. You're right. I think there's some simmering tension there. I kind of like that shot that looks like it's from the surveillance camera or something like that from the upper corner of the room. I think it's a nicely shot scene. Just curious to know more. How did this one pop up on your radar? Stumbled across it?
Just looking for anything related to Halloween, because apparently nothing exists related to Halloween that we haven't already covered.
Yeah, there is not a lot to choose from new release-wise coming into Halloween.
No. On to something a little bit more noteworthy. Riley Keough's The Lodge.
That's our mom's hat.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You okay? I don't want to leave you here with the kids if you're not feeling up to it.
I'm feeling fine. It was my idea, and it's a couple days. I can do a couple days.
Okay, guys, I'm off. Have fun.
What is that?
Surprise.
Everyone committed suicide except for her.
All right, Michael. That's the much acclaimed horror film, The Lodge from Neon. What do you think?
I remain very excited for The Lodge. Been anticipating it for quite some time. I think it played at Sundance in January. Now it's pushed all the way to February of next year. I really liked Goodnight Mommy, the last film from these two directors. I have high expectations. What about you?
I share those high expectations and am quite excited for this film. Riley has a very off-putting physical appearance unless she turns it off. She is just passively, when you look at her, it might be like me projecting because of her roles, not someone I trust as a character to tell me the truth. And that's definitely bleeding through in this trailer, where I'm more certain that she is the one responsible for the bad things happening and she can't remember, than that it's any sort of an entity or anything like that, if that makes sense. Just between that movie last year, with Skarsgård.
Oh, the Netflix one.
Yeah.
We talked about it on the show.
Very long title. Jeremy Saulnier.
Yep. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
The girlfriend experience, which she also she gets a little bit like psychological distortive. I'm digging what I'm seeing. And the craftsmanship of the film looks great. Great location.
Yeah. For me, I think she's gorgeous. There's always something a little kind of like cold about her to me.
Yes.
Like in American Honey, it's maybe just an aloofness or something.
Right, but it feels like she puts that on.
Yeah.
It felt like she put that on even for the Andrew Garfield film.
Yes, which one?
It's evading me.
We're struggling.
I watched it last year, and you watched it this year in theaters, I want to say. Andrew Garfield, Riley Keough, Grace Van Patten's in it.
Under the Silver Lake.
Yes. She kind of puts on the aloofness in Under the Silver Lake, and is also playing that, like, you can't really tell who she is character, which is just so good. Yeah. It's not that I'm saying that she's bad or anything. It's just like she's one of those actresses that she gets to play with you a little bit more because you already almost don't trust her at some level. So I really relish my experiences with her.
Hold the Dark. That was the name that was eluding us. Yeah, I mean, I'm intrigued by her being cast here as the stepmom, right? I mean, you maybe sense that there's perhaps a sense of inadequacy or insecurity about, fulfilling that role of a mom to these kids. Yes. And that seems like sort of maybe the emotional kind of foundation of it. So that seems like it could be right up her alley.
And it also sounds like that's something they've messed with before in that film you referenced, Goodnight Mommy. So this might be a motif for them, the ideas of motherhood and horror.
Motherhood, the mother was certainly a key figure, no doubt.
Okay.
And it is certainly worth catching up with in advance, I think.
Did it? I don't know if we'll do it, but I'll try.
Yeah.
We've got the end of the decade list and the 2019 list, so
it'd be early next year.
We can try. Anywho, on to Jennifer's Body.
All right.
You're killing people. No, I'm killing boys. Are you scared?
Thought you only murdered boys.
I go both ways. I will finish you if I have to. Okay. You can barely finish gym class.
Jennifer's Body. Obviously written by Diablo Cody. How do you tell a Diablo Cody film when there are two different girls who are expressing both aspects of reality or life in a story? That is how you know it is a Diablo Cody film. Whether it is young adult or Tully from earlier this year.
It's not exactly subtle.
It isn't.
That is not
but
her
it's good.
Forte. Yeah, I don't think it's meant to be subtle to a large extent. Totally maybe so. There is a bit more of a twist there, whereas here it's right out in front of you, kind of the writing style.
Indeed. Yes.
So this one came out 10 years ago. Definitely seems to have earned a bit of a cult reputation.
Mm-hmm.
Cult status. Do you think it makes sense? Do you think it deserves the reputation it's garnered?
I do. And for very specific reasons. When I think about this, like, hot girl high school slasher type of a film, it's a very specific thing that I think of. Something that I think that we will talk about in One Cut of the Dead, some of those camera angles. Whereas in this Karen Kusama film, it's very obvious when she's choosing to do what we call now the male gaze, and that it just so clearly speaks to a female perspective of this classic genre of the horror story. And I think that that's why it has its reputation, because it's one of the few films I can think of where like it actually explores the psychology of like being a girl in this setting, and letting a girl be the slasher instead of letting a boy be the slasher, and then letting the girl be the one who's driven insane and becomes murderous, and like not just Megan Fox's character, but Amanda Seyfried herself. We see girls without makeup. We see girls ugly crying. We see it focused on how the girl is experiencing sex and not even thinking about it. It is just so clearly feminine, that I think that unique voice, which sadly is a unique voice in this genre, is really what does it. And then the star power, the staying power of Megan Fox and Amanda Seyfried cement it. Yeah,
I would completely agree. It's the clarity of the voice being female that is part of the distinctiveness, and that cult reputation definitely seems to have to do with like some of the world building and like the quotability of it. Like it's so one-liner heavy, you can imagine people rattling these lines off to each other. Those eccentric kind of details of the world, like a high school teacher who's sentimental but has a hook for a hand, a waterfall that swallows things up to never be found again. You kind of immediately get this sense that this is, recognizably like our reality, but it's not quite our reality. Yeah. And there's something about just that offbeat world building that I think really fits into the kind of idea of a cult film.
Yeah.
I know in your review you mentioned Megan Fox in relation to Winona Ryder, which is funny because the movie that kind of came to mind when I was watching this, even though it's not horror, was Heathers. Yeah, for sure. Another one that's, just the high school satirical cultish kind of movie.
Murderous.
Yeah, yes. 100%. But all that said, I would say I'm still largely kind of mixed on it. I think I get it. I get the appeal, and it is appealing. I don't know that I found the psychology it really investigated to be that interesting to me.
Absolutely agree. Yeah, no, I don't want this to ring like a ringing endorsement of the film so much as like a ringing endorsement of this film for its genre. So by comparison, it is fantastic. By comparison to things outside of its subgenre, it is better than bad. I was actually under the assumption that you liked it more than me because you gave it the heart.
Yeah. I mean, I do have positive feelings for it, and it was an entertaining enough of a watch, and I kind of like the ideas that I was getting away from it. If you just kind of stop taking it so literally, it's just for me about two girls who were such close childhood friends, maybe having a falling out, one having a serious boyfriend, one being boy crazy, and that just kind of causing this schism between them. That's a very real thing. Like I think everyone has kind of had. I mean, obviously this is very female centric, but the idea that you can drift apart from a friend.
Oh, for Adam Brody. Very relatable for all genders.
Right? Yeah. There's definitely something to that. For me, what did not quite work was believing that they were ever really great friends to believe with. Like, I think it leans
because
too
of
much.
Those flashbacks.
It does try to
undercuts the idea that they were friends.
Yeah.
I guess it made me think that Amanda was stupider than she seems in the film. Like, she seems smart, and then these flashbacks make it seem like she's foolish and in denial, but also, I don't know, there was a subtext of bisexuality at minimum between her and Megan Fox. So
And then it becomes literally the text when they make out.
Yes. Yeah, but even then she stops herself and we don't know. I don't know. I thought that there was a lot of things to read into why she stopped it.
Yeah, for sure. For me, it's like I kind of wanted to see, the aspects of that friendship that, would suggest how well they would know each other, like having been so close for so long. Like that would have made this a bit more rich in stakes if it felt like this was such a meaningful friendship that was sort of being torn apart.
And that's maybe where Diablo Cody just on a whole doesn't write that stuff. Mm-hmm. Not that I can think of. She's very internal focused generally on a central character, and then will build the surrounding world to investigate whatever it is she wants that character to have the ability to interact with. And there's very little world building that is not character centric in a Diablo Cody film, at least off the top of my head. So I do think that's just something you're going to get. I wouldn't lay it at Kusama's feet or the ineptness of the actors or anything. I would just say that the material is such that was bound to happen.
Yeah, I would agree. I did have a good enough time watching it, though. Like, I just think, it's pretty quickly moving. I think just scene to scene, it's entertaining just because of the quirkiness to some extent.
The campiness.
Yeah, there's some, like, it's kind of has its own internal logic to these things, like Megan Fox's character taking the football player into the woods and all the animals showing up to watch her take it down.
I loved that.
Yeah.
That was like reverse Cinderella.
It's just weird detail, that just kind of enriches the world.
Yeah.
That's just fun. I mean, I wish there was just a little more kind of like to it for me to really kind of chew on, but it's fun.
I would also say the same for when Amanda Seyfried is looking like a Disney princess running around trying to save the boy from the girl. That speaks to that role reversal that is just fun. Mm-hmm. However, if it was repeated now, it would just feel gimmicky. Mm-hmm. There's a weird level of sincerity that is what this is writing on for me to make it positive, because it's sincere. And once again, they are really stars to me. Megan Fox and Amanda Seyfried, they are quiet movie stars. They don't have the accolades when we think about it, but when you think about either one of the most rewatchable films of all time, Mean Girls, when you think about one of the most intense interrogations of faith and life now in Paul Schrader's First Reformed, she's put together a really quiet career. And Megan Fox has put together, one of the most globally profitable lineups per film that you could think of as far as an actress between Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Transformers. Yeah. Her being sort of this sex symbol in Transformers, certainly brought in a ton of dough, but it does feel like this is using it for more interesting means, I guess, no doubt. Yes. And that's, that is to Cody's writing, I guess. Any favorite aspects of it? Any favorite sequences, details, characters? Adam Brody's character is probably my favorite character. He's good because he's so he's just like the thing that defines the film. Like, if I had to point at the axis of the film cannot exist without him and his conviction in being the teenage dirtbag douchebag baby that he is, and just with such conviction. And it's the same as Ready or Not. He's the same as in Ready or Not, where it's like, how are you giving this 110% every scene? It's great. He makes it. Yeah,
something about the high school scene and the emo kids, the jocks. Sometimes that can just feel too cliche ridden. Sometimes it's sort of embracing the cliche of it. I think that all just kind of worked for me here. I thought most of these characters seemed like real high school kids to me, totally wrapped up in their scenes. I really liked the kid who Megan Fox sort of lures to that abandoned house.
Yes. I believe his last name is Gray. Colin Gray? Is that right?
The character?
Yeah.
That sounds right. Yeah. in that scene where he's driving to her house, he's got, his kind of like emo music playing in the car, and he's kind of half singing, but he's kind of like a little jittery with excitement, a little nervous, but excited.
Very relatable.
That just speaks like, that's a high school boy, no doubt. That felt pretty spot on. That had to probably have been one of my favorite of these side characters, but it's peppered out with some nice detail like that.
It is.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would point at any particular scene as great, though, which is interesting because Kusama has such a strong eye now. Like when I think about Destroyer, I can just get lost in the imagery of kicking Tatiana Maslany in the head in the final chase scenes, throwing her in the trunk. I can think about Nicole Kidman sleeping in the car. I can think about her trying to stay awake and chugging coffee with her wrinkled face. I can think about her undercover with Sebastian Stan. Like, those things just scream sparkling depth imagery, even if they're harsh images. Whereas this just... it's kind of overtly, like, digitized and glossy. There's something about it that makes me think that if I heard Sean Baker talk about it, he would just start ranting about the digital cinematography ruining the movie itself.
Yeah.
I don't know if that rings for you at all, but I didn't see as much as I expected.
Yeah, I would agree. There isn't like a set piece that I would point to that I really loved, even like the climactic fight. I don't know that like I would hold
pool?
that scene up.
Oh, that was very bad, personally, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's very... like, they clearly shot the entrance to the location and then shot at a different location. Like, it was just so painstakingly obvious, the way that film was cut, and that really got to me.
Yeah, but it's just kind of the detail. It's like her kind of working within the confines of this script, like when we get this quick scene with the football player. I think he's just standing by himself on the football field, and I think he starts to cry. Yeah. But we start from like the opposite side of the field and zoom like all the way across the field. Yeah. Just little touches like that are really kind of constant. And they never really sort of define like a whole scene. It's just kind of these details of moving the camera this way or that way.
She's doing great directing without getting that one great shot, I'd say.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, she has to follow the script. I don't know that there was like just a ton of room here to really do something on par with like the shootout, in Destroyer, which was dope. So completely with you on that.
Yeah, it's a movie. I'm glad we got to it. I'm glad I know more about Kusama's background.
Yeah, this has a heck of a chart on Letterboxd. Like, the bars from 0.5 star to 5 stars are pretty darn even.
Really?
You don't see that often, that it's like a pretty spread out field of reactions.
Especially with the cult classic, Cult classic like Room, you either get 5 stars or 1 stars, you know?
Yeah, we're the ones right in the middle, I guess.
Yeah.
But slightly positive.
Yeah. What do you say? On to the next one?
On to the next one.
You ready to do this in one take?
One take.
One cut of the dead.
So, I still have not seen you log this one on Letterboxd, so I still don't even know if you're positive, negative, mixed.
I finished it today. As I explained earlier, I only had time to watch the first third, where the credits roll, and then I watched the making of, the one cut of the dead, 2/3 length of the full film. And I believe that once again, we are in lockstep. It is not until the end of the show that we will diverge greatly by a whopping 1 star.
There you go. Glad to know we're on the same page here.
Yes.
I thought this was great.
It is delightful. I don't know that I would say it's great and mean it in a way that isn't meaning great joy. It is not great cinema. It is not great masterwork. It is a great, good time. It is fun. It oozes ingenuity, working together, teamwork, a clear sense of what the objective is at all times to do, and it is wholly a tone of its own. I'd almost put it in the genre of battle royale. If you've ever seen
I've never
that
seen
film.
Battle Royale, but very familiar with it.
But there's something that oozes camp, but also sincerity about both of these that I do think I find more in South Korean and Japanese cinema than most other places.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I like it a lot, but when I say the word great, I mean fun more than like everyone needs to watch this. This is a perfect piece of art. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wouldn't throw out the word perfect maybe either, but maybe I'm even then a little higher on it than you. Like, this is one that I would definitely encourage a lot of people to seek out. It continued to take me by surprise. I thought it was very sweet, very funny. The low budget charm of it I thought was very appealing. It's kind of that DIY kind of feel. Yeah. And even just as kind of a metaphor, you know, the one take, the tagline, just keep rolling, that speaking to the idea of, you know, the idea that artists should just keep going when they run into problems, you know, yep. When you hit obstacles, when it's important to just creatively problem solve. Don't let it stop you. Just keep going. And like, you can create great art within the confines that you might be working in, or, you know, based on constraints. And I think that really could have been heavy-handed or too cute or too sentimental. I think it definitely could have like saddled some of the family members who come to work on this project together with some kind of sentimentality that would have like just been too sweet. I think it really kind of threads the needle in being very sweet but not too cute for me.
Yes, I think it's because of the pace of play. Mm-hmm. They're just going so fast the whole time that they don't get to sit down and get mired in the gobbledygook of the emotions. It's all just...
They don't have time.
one cut, drama. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like what is more... heart-pounding, whether or not the makeup artist is going to finish bloodying the stump or whether the zombie is going to bite her neck. You know, like there is something extremely charming about this movie. It is something that I would also say to seek out. I don't mean to speak about it like derogatorily or anything. It's just like there's a clear difference to me between like this and Midsommar or Parasite or The Witch. You know what I mean? Like, they're different genres of the same art. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that it's not as valuable as the other. It's just it's different in a lot of ways. Yeah.
It's maybe just about the depth of feeling or something. The feeling here is very positive and satisfying. It's just kind of that extra layer that those kind of movies can kind of dig into.
Yeah. And like finding joy in weird spots, right? Like it's that end shot that is supposed to frighten the viewer with the idea of this is how the summoning starts, is from these bloody pentagrams, but it is instead the capturing of that shot that brings about the most joy in the film because of the teamwork necessary to do it. And it's those little flourishes of ingenuity in the writing process that I think really speak to something pleasurable.
Yeah. I think the writing's really good. I think the acting's really good. Like, you get different types, of characters working on this film. And there's the alcoholic, grandfather.
Who hits his head on the bottle cap?
Yeah. There's the girl who's always concerned about her image and what her agent's going to say about it. The guy who kind of wants everything his way. Those all could have just been a little obvious in their types. But I actually thought they were all pretty charming, and then it was pretty satisfying to see them all, materialize during the third chapter of it.
Yeah.
I think that all worked quite well.
Paul?
So funny. Super funny. I continued to get a kick every time the director would come running out of somewhere. Action! Just great. I thought it was pretty witty.
I can't have you killing my actors.
It's pretty funny stuff. Tricky one to market. I certainly had no idea that this is what it was. Did you have any sense of?
Well, I did slightly because we were trying to find it, and you were there when I showed you the beginning. So, like, I knew that it was, like, a movie about making a movie, but I didn't know a thing. My friend told me about it. He's like, this 100% certified fresh zombie movie. I just got a notification for it from Rotten Tomatoes. I was like, I've never heard of that. And then it was 2017, and I was like, all right, Michael, let's toss this on the show. And, it's special.
Yeah. When the credits started to roll after the initial 40-minute take, I was 50-50 on whether it was over or not. I literally had to double check. I was like, maybe that was longer than I thought. I guess it could be over. I was legitimately confused. So I was completely in it.
So is the other half going to be the making of that?
Yeah.
And I didn't so I was right, but I was wrong in the way that I envisioned the making of. I didn't think it would be a movie in which the making of took place. I thought it would be a documentary of the making of, and instead it is a movie making of, which is great.
Yeah. I think there are lines like one of the producers, I think they're producers, saying something like it's just for TV, like, yes. don't sweat it. The idea that
this will be a great shot in my movie.
Yeah,
it's just for TV.
That you can be pressured to do something, economically or efficiently and still manage to, create something artistically meaningful within that kind of environment of pressure, that I think is really of value. Like, I've never made a movie. I don't think I ever will, but if I were a filmmaker, like, I think I would be pretty, like, inspired of it. Like, I would certainly point directors to it and be like, great example of how when problems show up, you just roll with it and you can make it work.
Yeah. I'd love to know how this project was envisioned and if it was planned like this the whole time. Because it's kind of like, I'm about to really compliment it. It's kind of like The Handmaiden, where like, how did you derive this plot scheme? Like, it's a very clever plot scheme that you derived. How did you come to it? Was it something you arrived halfway through? Did you envision it the whole time? Because both The Handmaiden and this, like, it's in the action of the film that sells it, not in the way that it's edited. Mm-hmm. Although editing works very well for The Handmaiden, it is the way that the actors are portraying their roles in that film, just like this, that really sell the accomplishment of it.
Yeah, I would completely agree. I think this director directed, wrote, and edited it. So clearly a project of love.
Yes,
taking up multiple jobs, like many of the people in the movie.
Yes, it kind of reminds me of a movie from 2017 that I really responded to called Ghost Stories.
Didn't see that.
It's very much like a self-made. It has stars in it, but it's got its own little sections, and you can tell that it feels kind of that same way, which is a labor of love. It had Martin Freeman in it for a brief scene, but yeah.
Favorite character, favorite scene, favorite details, anything come to mind?
Favorite character would have to be the zombie with the nub arm.
Yes, that's who I was going to say.
Always
so
there,
funny.
Just and I mean the end when he's on the bottom of the pyramid and he has those contacts in and he's like breathing deeply to try to not fall.
Yeah, great. Maybe, I don't know if anyone looked as terrified as him when he got puked on by the grandfather. He looked genuinely shocked. That was great. He was funny. He was super funny.
Yeah. Yeah, they did use the table read stuff to kind of do what you would normally see in the actual film itself.
Yeah.
So that was very clever.
Definitely clever. A very clever movie.
I don't know that I have that much more on this guy.
I don't think I do either, and I think that's okay. This is streaming exclusively on Shudder right now. I think this is 2 thumbs up from both of us, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, seek it out, enjoy it. It'll be a nice thing to have seen.
100%.
On to more serious fare.
Dying is cruelty against the unsuspecting. But death is not everything. It's more cruel not to be able to die. I wish I could partake of the love which is between you and Jonathan.
Nothing in this world, not even God, can touch that.
Nosferatu the Vampyre.
Our second Herzog in just a couple of weeks. I think it was maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, we did Heart of Glass. Sticking within the 70s, I believe. I think Heart of Glass is maybe early 70s. Nosferatu, like you said, 1979.
Correct.
You were quite high on this film, I understand.
I am quite high on this film. This is... Yes, I enjoy Herzog. He speaks to me as a visual poet. And I enjoy his visual poetry and how seriously he takes his own projects. And their own, as you would say, internal logic and internal consistencies. Even though outside the film, it seems quite foolish that you would randomly cut to a close-up of a vampire bat continuously throughout the film and that wouldn't be cheesy. But it's not.
I agree. I would not have described anything in here as cheesy. I'm definitely positive on this film. I liked it. I didn't wholeheartedly love it. I really wanted to. This has been on my list to see for a long time. Thinking that a more kind of poetic, atmospheric, thoughtful take on Nosferatu would be right up my alley, and just to a decent extent it was. I think there are just certain aesthetic things here that just kind of rub me the wrong way personally. Yeah.
What are you going to tell me? You read Labuza's thoughts on Werner Herzog and then went into the movie and were like, yep, you're right, Labuza. He's just too imperialistic.
Oh, is that the word he used?
I mean, Labuza has quite a few problems with Herzog. So it would depend on which review we were talking about. But yes, in mass, Labuza and Herzog do not get along.
Gotcha, yeah. I mean, generally speaking, I think I like the approach he's taking here, which to me, this is a much kind of sadder take on the story of Dracula versus like Coppola's. This is our second time doing a Dracula movie, much more psychedelic, trippy. I do think this is tapping into the loneliness of the vampire in a kind of direct way. Is that the same kind of idea you got from it? Any sort of similar sense?
I totally agree, but I think that it's so clear to me personally that this film had an overt effect on Coppola's imagining of Dracula. Like if we look at the gray shores that he uses, if we look at the ship choice, if we look at Van Helsing, like just all the motifs are there. The coffin transference and the way that that's shot. Like, man, I see Coppola directly riffing off of Herzog. And I think that's an immense compliment.
I don't know that I agree on that one.
No?
I mean, I don't know that either one of them are that different from the Murnau one. I think those are just consistent tropes within the story.
Yes. It's the specific, to me, it's the way that the cut to the ship in both of them, and the way that the sea is roiling and kind of the atmosphere that the fog creates on the beach and the lamenting gal. Like, I don't think that they're very different in the way that they're conceived directing wise. And I think that I read it as a direct, riff off of that.
Yeah.
I might be wrong. But.
I would have put it more in line with the Murnau version as being, I don't know, the Murnau one's pretty, I think, rich in dread, but more in its sort of like I don't know. It's just not like the phantasmagoria of the Coppola one for me.
Yes.
That one's like, he is so clearly a bad guy in that one. He is a villain. I think there's more pathos for him in this.
Yeah, I mean, the tone is more phantasmagoria, but to me, the loneliness in Dracula, I picked up on loneliness in Dracula, and I feel like that loneliness kind of came from this iteration of the character. And I mean, Keanu and Bruno Ganz, I see very similar ways of playing that role and taking center stage in the film and then kind of disappearing into a chair in the corner. The lighting as well. But once again, the lighting in this is clearly a riff of the original.
Yeah. Which looks great. I think it's a very, very nice looking movie. Same cinematographer, I believe, as Heart of Glass, and I love the cinematography there. I think it looks great here. I think it often has the look of an oil painting to me. Just those tall shadows you think of when you think of Nosferatu with the long fingers. Like, if you just don't have that in your Dracula movie, you got a problem. And he does it, and he does it well, and they look great. So I cannot complain about any of that. It's a good-looking movie.
The choreography, particularly in this film, is stunning, because I believe that the extended take where Nosferatu chases Bruno Ganz to the other side of the room, and Bruno falls into the armchair, and then Nosferatu sits in the opposite chair that you can't even see is there until he sits down in it, and his face is right at the only spot where the light is to cast that light on his face. And then later when he's dying in the sunlight and he hits that perfect spot where the sun is on his face so that we can see him as he writhes in agony. Like, it's a special piece of craftsmanship to me.
Most definitely, yeah. And I think that aesthetic only kind of further enhances that sense of loneliness and isolation for me. Like, there are shots where you get Dracula's head, that like translucently pale face just in a pure black background, and it looks like it's just totally detached from his body, like it's just floating in that darkness, which just he does look very alone, literally, in these shots. And it's also kind of about like the affluence in a way. He has the big feast and he says he can't share it with them. This, the vaulted ceilings of that house. I don't know why that struck me more here than in some of the other takes on this story. Just how some of those really play up how vulnerable Jonathan Harker is coming into Nosferatu's house, which you definitely get here, but it's also like you're coming into a guy's house who just hasn't seen anybody in like God knows how long. And like he just hasn't seen the sun, like he needs to get out. And that longing to just like be near people after having been on the mountain in this giant castle for so long. I do think there's something that I got out of that. But
how about Kinski's ability to act?
I do like Kinski quite a bit.
Special. And the way that he pulls off the prosthetic teeth, just like you don't doubt for a second that those are real in the disillusionment of the film itself. Like, I was never removed. I was just always there. Some of those close-ups of just objects, or even the faraway time-lapse shot of the castle on the hill, like there's certain visual motifs that Herzog uses again and again and again. And I think we see Malick use some of the similar cinematic languages that we see in Herzog. Maybe we even see James Gray use some of those. But they speak directly to kind of nature's character, or like the character of time in the film, which is not something that I think of very often when I watch any other film, where he just lets a timepiece be a momentary character. And it is such a striking image to look at the timepiece be a momentary character that you can probably still remember now the corpse shuffling from one door to the other, in just this long-ish close-up take of a shadow and a spotlight on a cuckoo clock that is a corpse.
I was struck by some of the landscapes, particularly like in the journey from the village where Harker's coming from to Dracula's castle. That long sort of journey, that did feel like Heart of Glass to me in how the landscape is captured. And yeah, I could see something, to the idea that, he's been around as long as the land itself has. Like he is just as much kind of a fact of it as the, castle is, as you just see it night after night after night in that time lapse thing. I definitely think there's something to that. But during that journey, I think is where like some of the aesthetic things that I didn't care for quite so much kind of popped up and then continued to pop up, which to me is kind of just tone. Like, I don't find that the score here really works with the content of the images. I thought that that journey I just expected to be more rich with dread, and the score sounds almost more like hopeful to me. There's something that there's just some kind of a dissonance between the feeling that the sound evokes and what the images suggest to me. One's more hopeful, one's much more morbid, and I can't really reconcile the two. I don't know that if I just don't get it, or if it just didn't click for me. No sense of that?
Well, let me give you my favorite quote of the year. People are more than just one thing, Michael. I would lean towards the reading that it's two things. He's there for capitalistic gains to try to succeed in his job so that he can provide the life that he wants for him. And I don't remember if they were married yet or if they were going to get married when he left, or if I'm mixing with Dracula, which I think is what's happening with Keanu and Winona and Coppolis.
That's a good question. I don't remember if they were married or not.
And then like the journey in the dissonance, like, yeah, there's, to me, that vibes with what a vampire is. It is a dissonance of nature. Like he's walking through something that's alive that has to die. He's going to something that is living dead. So while everything is fine in that part of the world that he's traveling through, and it's hopeful, and he doesn't know what he doesn't know yet, in the background of the music is that dissonance that speaks to the woman's intuition that we get before he leaves, which is that you shouldn't go. This is a bad idea. But to him, it's a happy work trip that speaks to bountiful gains in his future. And to me, there's almost like a veiled criticism of capitalism in the film as well, specifically in this part that we're talking about. So it worked for me. I get why it wouldn't work for you, but I try not to expect that I know the tone in pictures like this. Like in Jennifer's Body, I'm much more accusatory of like, you failed to give me the tone that I expected, whereas in this, I think that I'm a lot more open to interpretation and trying to reason how that could make me feel, because I feel like it is deeper.
I did try and think to myself, well, maybe this is the hopefulness of Harker's perspective. I just couldn't really find the syntax in that journey visually to suggest that this was really of his mindset. It felt pretty third person to me in how it's shot.
So I might suggest that it could be the hope of nature itself. Like the natural world is something that I think Herzog uses as a character in his films consistently. And so maybe it's the hope of the natural world that this man will rid the decay, or this man's arrival will rid the decay of naturalism and the nature of reality itself. That's how I think I read it.
Yeah.
It's one of those films that's like deeply philosophical in a sense where I don't know everything that I thought about it. at some level.
Yeah. It was kind of a feeling as I was watching it that I was maybe just not getting it. Like there's that shot of the river, and it's like a decent little take, of the river, where it's I suppose I just didn't get as I didn't get anything out of it that I thought it was maybe trying to convey there, but
Herzog, I will say, has visual motifs. The more you go with him, the more you might see what he's trying to say, and the more you might disagree with whether or not he's accomplishing that goal. But I do think that maybe there is some overt point that he always has in his visual language or cinematic language, where if you know it, you because he's pretty well militaristic in his filmmaking. He got that shot for a reason, and he'll tell you why he got that damn shot, and he'll tell you while he's getting shot in the stomach. And he'll finish telling you that before he reacts to the fact he's been shot in the stomach. I don't know if you've heard that story. I don't know if I've mentioned it on the podcast before. But
loosely familiar with it.
That is who Werner is. He's he is a man of great ego and a man who's accomplished a great deal with that ego.
Yeah. I remember after If Beale Street Could Talk came out, Nicholas Britell, the composer, in an interview talked about his two approaches to music and how he wants the music to either reveal something latent in the image or leverage dissonance in some way to create kind of a third idea. And with Beale Street, it was definitely the former. It was, tapping into just, the deep kind of romance of it. Yes. Versus Vice, which he also scored around the same time, which was, dissonance for the sake of satire. And it's partly probably just expectations that with this story, I would have expected the former. Like I was fully kind of wanting this to be more rich with dread, knowing this infamous, deeply terrifying creature we're about to encounter. And instead it opts for the latter. And there's more of this sense of optimistic wonder in it that might have just been kind of jarring for me. But that has partly to do with just knowing this story. You come in with certain baggage. You expect one or the other.
So I think that I also came in with the same baggage of this story, but I didn't come in with the same expectation of Desire. And that might be where we're... Other than the fact that I love Herzog. So, I'm probably biased as fuck to begin with on this one. But it's... I liked that it zigged where it would have ordinarily zagged. I liked that it is a wondrous thing to encounter something that does not follow the laws of nature. And the reversal of the man being, absorbed and infatuated at some level by this creature rather than the woman, I thought was a great pivot. There's just stuff here that I like storytelling wise, the nature of this is the plot point where the man knows that he has to kill the evil thing, and instead of doing what we think it's going to do in the noir, it does the opposite thing where it's not a blonde, it's a brunette, and she's not smoking, she's drinking or vaping, or there's
vaping,
just
yes,
right, there's these little things where it's where it would have ordinarily happened, something has to happen, and he just does a little bit different there. And then he'll insert those landscape shots. He'll insert the cutaways. He'll dress the sets sumptuously. He'll get the best locations that you will see kind of from that era. Maybe Tarkovsky and maybe Kubrick would be up there with Herzog for, set locations and decorations at this point in cinema.
Yeah. I cannot argue with that about the look. I think it looks fantastic. And I think it's been a while since we watched the Coppola one, and a way long time since I saw the Murnau one. But I guess there are points where I think he's kind of deviating from the story. Like the detail with the rats, I think was new.
And the Black Plague.
Yeah, I don't remember that being a part of Coppola's at all. I think that was pure Herzog.
I believe so.
And yeah,
once again, him speaking to nature and the perversion of nature and that type of stuff.
Something about Nosferatu trying to join this quaint community and then only chasing it away and his isolation following him. I kind of liked that idea. Like that town seems just deathly empty by the time he arrives. It was already quiet and quaint.
Well, I do think that might be more of the original text, because in the not Van Helsing, not Constantine, Castlevania. There is a anime series called Castlevania. It's based on video games called Castlevania, which are based around Dracula. That is also a motif, is the Black Plague following vampirism. So
okay.
I do believe that is at least based in some part of the historical canon of
not
the
just,
vampires.
He didn't just pull that out of a hat. Yeah, got it, yeah. There was lots of pretty unforgettable imagery just with the hordes of rats, swarming those areas. That dream sequence is a dream sequence. No, it's not a dream sequence where they're having like a meal in the town square.
Yes.
Right? And now the movie feels like a dream, so it's just weird to now even think. But I think that actually happened, right? I
think so. But that's the thing about Herzog is reality. He lets it become maddening. The things that these people are doing, and he makes you kind of sit in it, but also not know if it's real because it's so asinine what they're doing. And once again, that speaks to Herzog's view about, like, he knows what's best. Let him show you idiots.
Yeah. I couldn't decide if it was maybe sort of criticizing or poking fun at kind of how quickly they conclude it's the plague, or how fast the town kind of flees. Something about that ending where the gentleman walks into Jonathan and Lucy's house and says, go get the police. And he says, the police are gone. Go get the judge or whatever. And I'm like, judge is gone too.
You're a city employee. Make the arrest yourself.
Yeah. I don't know what to make of that, but I definitely felt something there about
Law and Order.
Yeah. Sort of dissolving.
Yes. In the face
maybe
of
too
perversion.
hastily. Yeah. I mean, plague's pretty scary, but still seems like that might have been the idea.
For sure. What's your favorite scene or image?
Probably those shots in Nosferatu or Dracula's house where his head is just kind of floating in those dark shots. Those are probably the ones that are just most kind of seared in my memory. What about you?
Forgive me for not knowing her name, but the love interest and ultimately the hero of the film, when she is on the beach underneath the cloudy sky and just long beach shot framed beauty. Like, I want to print that and put it on a wall. That is one of the most beautiful scenes I've witnessed this year.
Yeah, we talked about how dark it is. I feel like she is just that symbol of, like, she has this like angelic white glow off her, like from that just dress.
But is also half Morticia Addams.
Definitely.
At the same time.
Very pale. She looks as pale as Dracula sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's her Christian cross that saves her.
Yeah.
And the ultimate undoing of Nosferatu is the good woman herself. What is it? A good woman's love, or the distraction of a good woman. It will lure him into sunlight, and he will be smote.
Yeah. What's a Halloween episode? Is it scary?
It's scary how good it is.
Nice.
Ooh, spooky.
I would say there's at least some pretty creepy, indelible imagery. At the very least, those are not the first images I'm going to want to conjure when I turn the lights out.
Or what if you turn the lights off and you just get glimpses of a close-up of a vampire bat in the night winging itself?
Also not what I want to think about just before bed. So, you can find scarier, but maybe not the one you turn to if you're dying to get spooked.
But if you want to catch up on Herzog,
there you go.
It's great. Thus concludes another year's Halloween episode. Spooktacular number 2. Concluded.
Happy Halloween. And that's another one in the can.
Run! Go! Get to the chopper!
We have to go.
I'm coming with you.
That was brilliant.
You're the best and we love you!
Sounded so disappointed there.
You sure
I
did.
can.
It's done.